Mr. Jordan from Ohio for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Professor Mascott, when was Dr. Fauci elected to office?
At no time.
Has he ever been elected to anything?
I have not. He's not, certainly not in the current role.
Is he a member of Congress?
No.
Now, Dr. Fauci's a smart guy. In fact, if you don't believe me, just ask him. He said Sunday on a TV show that, quote, I represent science. So I'm not saying he's not a smart individual, but who does Dr. Fauci answer to?
Well, I mean, well, at this point, I mean, presumably indirectly to the president, but I take your point.
Well, I don't even think, Professor, with all due respect, I don't even think he answered to the president, because President Biden says we follow the science, and Dr. Fauci has basically said, I am science. I'm almost like God speaking. So I don't even think he answers to the president. So this is what scares me, is the fact that it's people who've never put their name on a ballot, never went out and talked to we the people who are making the decisions. And frankly, the Democrats' witness likes it that way. Let me just read from Mr. Michaels, Professor Michaels' testimony this morning. Just one sentence. We need an agile regulatory system to address the climate crisis, COVID-19 variants, environmental injustice, massive income, wealth inequality, affordable housing shortage, antibiotic resistance organism, the opioid overdose epidemic, and threats to the financial stability posed by cryptocurrency. We don't need a Congress. We don't need a Congress. We got this regulatory system that the Democrat witness thinks we need. So forget like putting your name on a ballot, going actually out and talking to the people and get elected to office and being in the United States Congress. We don't need it, according to Mr. Michaels. So isn't that your concern?
Yeah, I think you're putting your finger on a very poignant example in current practice where we have a significant problem facing the country, obviously the pandemic, and there's a very broad statute, the quarantine statute from the 1940s, that had not been carried out anywhere close to the way it has been applied recently in the past.
But Mr. Michaels doesn't want to limit it to that. Dr. Fauci may want to. Who knows what he wants to? He probably just wants to be dictator. But Mr. Michaels doesn't want to limit it to that. He talks about affordable housing. He's talking about cryptocurrency. He's talking about environmental injustice. I mean, he's talking about all kinds of things that he thinks the regulatory state needs to be able to agilely, or in some kind of fashion, be able to deal with. So yes. It's not just quarantine issues.
Well, of course, and I think the reason what you're pointing to, right, is the breadth of the law and how it's being interpreted. And if we defer to the executive branch's interpretation, that housing and cryptocurrency and whatever else falls within.
But that's sort of how it works, isn't it? Isn't? I mean, there's always some exceptions, and there's some give and take in the comment period of these. But the agency proposes a rule, then they enforce the rule, and then if there's a dispute, they have an Article I judge, executive branch judge, adjudicate. So again, and they want more of that. They want them to do that for everything. So why do we need a Congress?
Right, the concentration of power, I think, in single entities is one of the greatest problems facing our system of government.
No kidding. No kidding. Some of these people, I mean, the people who make decisions and impact small business owners, Americans, I mean, just every single day, the regulatory state, the bureaucratic state runs this country, and it is a huge problem. It's the biggest threat to liberty I think we see. And I haven't seen the bill that the chairman is introducing, but my gut tells me it probably moves in the direction that their witnesses want it to go, which is more power to the bureaucratic state. Is that your interpretation of their bill? I don't know if you've seen it either, because I haven't.
I have not seen the bill. I will say I think the most constitutional approach would be for power to be dispersed among different decision makers, state, local communities, families, then at the federal level, policymaking in Congress. And you all have a lot of power here to be able to put those systems in place and make policy decisions.
We're supposed to have a lot of power, something we need to claim back or take back. This idea that bureaucrats are going to run the country is, as I said before, frightening. You said this earlier. I just want to read this. I think this is you put this well, and you just basically said the same thing. The distribution of power over separate branches of government helps to ensure that each branch can more effectively perform its function of serving as a check on the other branches in order to better secure, this is the important part, the private interest of every individual. The security for civil rights consists in the multiplicity of interest. That is the Constitution. That's what this committee is supposed to uphold. More than any other committee in the Congress, we're supposed to be focused on that. And yet we have witnesses come in here and basically say, do away with Congress, let the regulatory state run the country. That is frightening. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. I seek unanimous consent to add a number of statements and letters regarding the current state of the rulemaking process and potential legislative reforms.